Hey guys, just before the podcast gets started, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an upload. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Yellow Squared podcast, and we're back. James, welcome back to the podcast. This week we are reflecting on Tom Cleverley's first game and first win in charge of the Hornets. How are you doing?
I am very good. Sun is shining again, and Watford picked up 3 points. We are sat comfortably in mid-table. TC's at the wheel, mate. I'm good. How are you? You alright?
Yes, yeah, I'm very good. We spoke last week about finding some results between then and the end of the season. I feel like we all bookmarked this game as winnable, and where we would pick up some of our remaining points just to steer ourselves into mid-table obscurity. And that is where we find ourselves. 13th, I think we're up to. And yeah, just steadily pushing ourselves away from the relegation zone. So eliminating any threat that was in people's minds of relegation from the Championship. But yeah, a good win. More on that later, more on the performance and how we sort of set up, because ultimately nobody had a clue how we'd set up, given it was his first game in charge. But before all of that, James, we're back with Guess the Player. 15 all after my 2 points picked up last week.
Yeah.
Failed to take the lead again, so over to you. This is your opportunity to potentially go 3 points ahead.
Go 3 points ahead. Yeah.
Hopefully for me, you fumble this one, because I've made it quite challenging. We had a chat about another player off camera earlier,
Yeah.
which would have been very interesting. But
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Are you ready for clue number one?
Yeah, I'm ready. And am I right in thinking really that we've kind of got eight weekends left of this competition? Um, and if we're drawing after 8 games, do we go to the playoffs?
Well, we kind of have to, don't we?
You do,
We
yeah.
could follow it in somehow, but I think there has to be some sort of twist at the end to see one of us win. But hopefully, this is the week that you stumble and I can take control.
Yeah.
Okay then.
I'm ready. I'm
Remember to
excited.
play along at home, guys. We did receive a message actually in the week, which was very nice. Shout out to Stephen, who's been following the podcast while walking out and about. So that's great. Yeah, play along if you are ready and listening at home. Okay, clue number one, James. I
Yeah, hit me.
signed for Watford on a season-long loan in 2012-13 and made my debut in the second game of the season in a 1-0 loss to Ipswich Town.
Oh. Well, I see what you've done there because we had about 15 season-long loans
Yeah,
that
I
season,
didn't
didn't we?
narrow it down for you.
No, you haven't. And made my debut.
In a
Oh,
1-0 loss, you didn't even contribute that much either.
yeah. So, so we can rule out, or we can rule out Vidra, we can rule out Abdi because they all scored. But some of those other players, Pudo would have played. And I think we've guessed all of those, haven't we? So, um, oh, okay, I've got one, and this is just a guess now, stab in the dark, because I'm just trying to think back to that opening day game against Palace, and trying to think who I don't remember playing. So I'm going to guess at Ikechianya. Oh.
No, not Akechi Anya.
Oh.
Yeah, unlucky for you, but that narrows it down to 2 points come sort of the
Yeah,
midpoint of the podcast. All to play for still,
yeah, okay.
and ever
Pressure's
the
back on.
chance of me taking over from you next weekend. Okay then,
Yeah,
James. 1-0 victory yesterday. Um, let's just have a chat about the first half. So there was a bit of early pressure, wasn't there, from Birmingham? Um, we weathered that relatively well. I think it's always difficult going to St Andrews because the atmosphere is can go quite hostile, but at the same time,
Mm.
as we showed after scoring the goal, it can flip on its head instantly. And yeah, it goes from being a tough place to go to the fans sort of going for their own players. And so we weathered that storm well. And I don't really think much happened in that first half, to be honest. Sort of blinked and it was Dennis's goal, just on the
Yeah.
stroke of half time. I'm just going to ask this question to you, James, on
Yeah.
the first half. Did you notice any specific differences between how we set up and how we played under Ismael?
Well, no, to be honest. I think also it's probably worth touching on the selection really,
Yeah,
because I think it feeds into the same point. Um, yeah, no, a little bit of behind the scenes for all you listeners. We scored. Dennis scored just as I was starting to draft our halftime tweet,
yeah,
and I had to rapidly change what I was going to say because yeah, before the goal, I was kind of um, going down the route of it's 0-0. It's not been great, and there's no real difference from last week. Um, I've thought that the style of play was largely the same. You could maybe say that we went a bit more direct, um, but no, I don't think there was a huge amount of difference.
yeah,
Now, when you've only had 1 week to prepare, you're kind of hamstrung by the players that you've got available to you.
yeah,
So just to
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
recap, we didn't have Hoot, who was out suspended, so that forced um, some of the changes in the back line with Matty Pollock coming in. So we'll talk about him in a bit.
yeah.
I think Jamal Lewis was he injured? Was he
Yeah,
injured or ill?
literally the day before, I think he
Yeah.
had a little injury. So
So
that
James
brought
Morris
in
has to
Morris.
come
Yeah,
in. Yeah, and then obviously Cleverley stuck with Dan Bachman in goal. Very delicate subject that, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, so I don't really know how much we could have expected there to be a huge amount of change in and style of play,
yeah.
especially as you're right, mate. When you started the chat here, it was such an important game, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah,
Really, because I think if we'd have lost that game, I think more alarm bells would have rung. I think people would have been like, "Oh no!" Like you just know how that some of the fan base would have turned on Cleverly straight away, saying
yeah,
he's not the
yeah,
right person. Blah blah blah. International break. You'd have would have had more and more and more of the uncertainty around the club, which is the last thing you need before, you know, going into Leeds on Good Friday. But so I think it was always going to be a case of let's get through the game and let's try and make minor tweaks to how the team has been playing,
mm,
which I think we did, to be fair.
mm,
Like I say, but it wasn't hugely different in my opinion to what we'd seen before. But I think in this case, as we probably lacked in a number of games earlier this season, we just got the little bit of luck we needed in that first half, which was um, Dennis managing to close down the centre back. And I say luck, you make your own luck because
mm.
Cleverley came out, didn't he, after the game and said that's what they'd worked on in the week with Dennis specifically.
Yeah. And I think that's the small details that Cleverly can implement straight away. Obviously, being around the club, knowing the players, those are the small tweaks you can change.
Mm,
Literally like that on at the click, like a click of your fingers, and those changes can be made. It's not like a new coach is coming in implementing a new style of play. I
yeah.
didn't feel like much would change, to be honest. It's difficult for Cleverley. He's not been in professional management ever before, so it would be hard for him to change up a whole style of play in just a week. Um,
Yeah,
but having said that, yeah, like you said, there were some small changes which he did make, and I feel like they did make a little bit of a difference because ultimately the ball was less around the back. It was more in the middle of the pitch when we had it, and into
yeah,
that Birmingham defensive third, which is what we want. Um,
yeah. I didn't know if you noticed this, and it might not have been a thing, but did you notice there was a lot more sort of incisive passes from like Porteous towards, like Dennis up front, like those sort of direct fizzed balls
yeah,
to the striker. I don't know if you noticed that or if that was just me, but
mm,
it felt like they were trying to get through the third slightly quicker,
yeah, yeah.
when the opportunity was there.
Yeah, and I think that's been something that we struggled with under Ishmael because the ball obviously was around the back a lot more. Obviously, Hoop being missing from that might be a massive factor because he
Mm,
has the ability to pick passes out better than Porteous and Pollock and Siralta in
mm,
that centre back position. However, yes, I did notice the more incisive passes, um, and the ball seemed to be going through the middle a lot more, which is where we got so much joy
mm.
earlier in the season. And I think we should have reverted back to that weeks ago, really, rather than trying to play the
Yeah,
ball into the channels and hope for something to get into the box. Whereas now you've got Kone and Dele Bashiru, who both had decent games. Dele Bashiru, the
mm.
standout for me in that midfield. Again, on
Yeah,
the half
yeah, very
turn,
good.
carrying the ball further, winning free kicks. I didn't see too much of Kayembe yesterday, um, and I can't really explain that to be honest. But overall, the ball did go through the middle much faster, much more directly, which is yeah, a small little change. The only thing I could say about the first half, which I was a bit nervy about, in that first sort of 5 minutes where we were under the cosh, I was concerned that if they were to get a goal, we would be slightly mudded, to say the least.
Mm,
I just felt that just in that starting, 5-10 minutes, we looked a little bit lost. But having said that, the desire and the work rate of that defense and the team, which was very young, the stat
yeah,
is
yeah,
the youngest starting 11 since Coventry away in April of 2011 at 23 years
yeah,
and 306 days.
yep.
So a young side going away to St Andrews, but they weathered the storm well.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
And after that, we started to have a bit more of a foothold in the game. And yeah, then we managed to create our own luck, and Dennis finished it off really well. And he almost scored again, actually, literally like 2 minutes after that, which should have been perfect.
Yeah,
But not to be on that occasion. And then James, moving into the second half, it was more of the same really. We came out, we looked quite dangerous for the first 10-15 minutes. Had a couple of chances.
yeah,
Dennis goes off. Bio comes on, and then we start to see some pressure again from Birmingham. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but defensively, there was quite a few last ditch challenges and whatnot, but um, yeah, I think they were quite resolute given the relative inexperience across that back four.
yeah. I I thought the last ditch defending and the commitment to stop the ball going in the net from the back four was really good to see. Like
Mm,
the determination from Porteous, Pollock, all afternoon to just get in the way. And I quite liked that they were no nonsense in some respects. If a ball was going down the channel, it was just going out for a throw in. They were just putting the head on things, and they weren't trying to overcomplicate it. And I guess that was a tactical from Tom Cleverley. The
Yeah.
other thing, just on Porteous, was you didn't see that marauding diving run, did you, from him
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
afternoon?
Yeah.
He didn't just come flying out, which, as we said, the whole Valerian reign, that must have been tactical that he was allowed to do it, because that would have been the easiest thing to say, don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And he was still allowed to do it. So that didn't happen at all today. So I guess that Tom's nipped that one in the bud, quite rightly so.
Yes. And we've said
But
that for a while, haven't we?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to work, unfortunately for him. But yeah, I thought last defending was great. What I would say is I thought that we lived dangerously for about 10, 15 minutes in that second half, probably from around the hour mark to 75 minutes.
Mm.
I just thought we were going to ship one by shooting ourselves in the foot. I thought we gave the ball away too easily for that period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loads of players were guilty of it. It's one of them. I saw what we were trying to do. We were trying to turn them on a counter, weren't we? Really, we were
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to flick the ball around a corner, and then we were away, because there was a few times we managed it to get beyond them and run at the defense. But I felt like we were, yeah, just a little bit, for me, a little bit naive in that situation, which probably
Mm.
comes back to the average age of the side. Andrews was trying, I think, too hard to force the ball forward, and gave it away a few times. Same with Morris in that fullback position,
Yeah.
which just allowed Birmingham to come onto us. And where Porteous and Pollock were committed in just putting their foot through the ball and just getting the ball out of danger. There was a few times, I think, when the midfield could have done that, but we tried the little flick or the little half touch to
Yeah.
to break, didn't get it, and Birmingham were through. And I think, if we're being honest, um, well, Bachmann won us the game in the sense that he made some really good saves
Yeah.
all afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one in particular which was immense.
Yeah,
Immense. In all fairness, he gets a lot of flack, Backman, but shot stopping is one of the best attributes he has, and
yeah.
yeah, it was evident. Uh,
The guy's
evident
middled it.
yesterday.
He's middled it on the volley from about, what, 12 yards
Yeah.
through a body of players, and he's managed to get a wrist to it. And it was I mean, I thought for all the world that was going in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he saved it. So credit where credit's due. And you know, Cleverley's faith in him being repaid with a clean sheet and his seventh of the season. So um, yes, mate. So circling back to your point, yes, I thought the commitment to defend was brilliant. I think if Cleverley's going to work on one thing for me, it's how we transition from defence, because we gave the ball away too
Yeah.
too readily against what you would probably describe as a pretty poor Birmingham side.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they obviously the age of the side will naturally lead to sort of naivety at times. But I think they showed certain players from Birmingham too much respect sometimes.
Mm,
Leaving the ball open um, too often on the attack when we're trying to break away. A few poor
yeah,
passes here and there, but yeah, that they showed Birmingham a little bit too much respect at times, which ultimately led to them losing the ball and us conceding chances again. But I can't fault the commitment and the work rate of the side, and that's all you can ask for, really. We got 3 points. It wasn't
yeah,
the best
yeah,
performance, but at the end of the day, 3 points, a clean sheet, and a side that those Watford fans in Birmingham could travel home and be proud of, because they really worked their socks off to win for Cleverley. And yeah, I
yeah,
think
big time, yeah,
that's the main thing, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And so, who are your um, who are your standout players from yesterday?
Standouts, I would have to say Delia Bashiru in the midfield looked really composed, just sitting in front of the defence for the most part, kept things out, progressed well with the ball later in the game when he moved forward slightly, and yeah, had a solid game. I have to commend James Morris. I've been quite
Mm,
critical of him at times this season, but I think he did the job he had to, filling in for Lewis at short notice, and he didn't look too out of place yesterday. So that's another standout for me. And you know what? I'll throw him back from there. And it's not going to be a particularly popular opinion on Watford social media, but like you said,
Yeah.
he did win us the game yesterday with two really great saves, which from my point of view were pretty much certain goals. And for you, James, standouts?
I'll echo all of your points there, and I will also just add in Pollock and Porteous,
Yeah,
who I thought were immense yesterday. And I think it was Porteous the fans' man of the match.
possibly, yeah. And I think it was his
I think it was.
50th appearance yesterday for
Yeah,
Watford as
yeah,
well. So nice for him to have a clean sheet and play really well.
yeah. So I thought those two were excellent, and it's nice to know that those guys can come in, and maybe now Pollock has sort of turned the corner
Mm.
with with the Watford staff. I guess maybe there's more faith and belief in him, and he's definitely not let the side down whenever he's played. I can't really think of any errors that he's um, been guilty of since he's come into the side. So yeah, I was really pleased for him. I thought he was great, and I think you saw how much it meant to him keeping that clean sheet yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. I think he embodies the philosophy of just working hard and
Mm.
really putting yourself on the line to get 3 points. Not the most technically gifted player with his feet, but similar to Porteous, really, they really give everything for you out there,
Yeah.
and just a couple of tweaks. You mentioned that the tendency for Porteous to charge into midfield following his man, tightening that up, and all of a sudden we look so much more structurally sound at the back, and that
Mm.
can make all the difference between conceding silly chances. Just off the top of my head, I can think of the goal we conceded at Bristol City and other times in the season, just from him running
Plenty.
out into the
Yeah.
midfield. But tightening that up, he obviously has to act as that leader in the central defence when Hoot isn't there, and for me, he really did that yesterday, and all of the back four could have been mentioned in standouts because I think they did a great job of weathering a storm which came multiple times yesterday. All
Bang
right then,
on.
James.
Yeah.
Clue two for guess the player. Should we delve
Yes.
into that just before we discuss Cleverley's post match interview and a
Yeah.
couple of final bits? Okay,
By all
James.
means. Yeah.
Um, this might completely throw you off, and this is what I'm hoping will happen with clue number two. So
Oh, is this getting tactical now? Is it?
it is getting tactical. Well, this is what we're pulling out. This is what we're pulling out. Given you picked Sean Dyche, who played for Watford, before I was born. So tactical. It has to be
Mm.
tactical. Just a reminder, if you're playing on at home, clue number one was I signed for Watford on a season-long loan in 2012-13 and made my debut in the second game of the season in a 1-0 loss to Ipswich Town. Clue two, James, are you ready?
Yes.
I am currently playing for Hallam FC in Sheffield, who play at the oldest football ground in the world, founded in 1860, having played for another club in Sheffield earlier in my career.
Oh no. I well, I mean, I mentioned his name uh earlier on. That's Daniel Padilla, isn't it?
It is Daniel Puddle, yes. 2 points,
Get in there.
James. Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll
Mm.
take it.
Yeah, he's still playing for Hallam FC. I could not tell you what league they're in, but it's low down. I would say. Yeah, big long career for Padil. He played for Watford, 108 appearances in all competitions, scoring 3 goals and getting 9 assists.
I
Um,
always felt sorry that he didn't get a chance to play in the Premier League with us.
yeah, he left literally
As
just
we got
before the start of
promoted,
that
didn't we?
season. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
actually I saw a
I
photo
liked
of
him.
him in that kit, and I was like, I don't remember him playing in the Premier League, but yeah, he was shipped out. One of many players actually shipped out in that window, which is
Yeah.
quite sad. Yeah,
Oh,
2 points,
yeah.
James.
Get in there. Come on.
17-15 to you there. I thought I'd really thrown you off with the just sort of fact about Hallam FC, but I
No,
feel like that's quite well known, isn't it? That he has ended up there in the Watford sphere, well known anyway.
in the Watford sphere, yeah, I think so.
Okay then, 2 points for you, James. 17-15 is the score. The door is not wide open, but ajar, I would say,
It's enough pressure though, isn't it?
for me to get in there and take the lead finally next week. But I hope you don't employ some tactical.
Skullduggery.
Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well. Okay then, James.
Yep.
Post match. Yeah, I watched the post match interview. I haven't really watched many of them this season, to be honest. I watched a few at the start. Certainly haven't been watching them in recent weeks, given the mounting pressure on Ismael and whatnot. But I
Yeah.
did watch it yesterday, and I was, really my respect for Tom Cleverley massively went up after that. Just how honest he was in the
Yeah.
interview, and it's kind of refreshing that a manager is so honest in the assessment of his team's performance. Yeah, just do you want to talk us through some quotes and how you found the interview?
Well, yeah, I mean, not just his post-match comments. I thought the whole week in the build-up and everything you've spoken about,
Yeah.
and everything he said has been, really nice. And I think we said last week, didn't we, that he would very quickly get the support of the fan base because of who he is, how long he's been at the club. But I still felt that he was genuine in everything he said. He didn't come across like he was just saying things for saying things' sake, really. So yeah, mate, I'm really happy with that. In terms of what he spoke about, I mean, what I thought, he picked up on the desire and the work rate of the players, which we spoke about.
Mm.
He acknowledged that he'd played with them, so he knew the players and he knew what he was going to get, and I think that probably shows in the selection in some ways. What I thought was really notable is how he came and said that he got it wrong in terms of how they thought Birmingham were going to set up. They
Mm.
watched them in midweek, thought they were going to do one thing, and they came out today and did something different.
Yeah.
So, he acknowledged that they made some mistakes, but then likewise, we scored the goal from the work that they'd put in. They noticed that Birmingham liked to try and play out from the back and were a little bit hesitant,
Yeah.
and we needed to press them high. And they'd set Dennis up to do that, and lo and behold, Dennis scores from that. So,
Mm.
yeah, those were some of the themes that he spoke about. And maybe as what we said at the start of the episode was, we didn't expect there to be too much change from what we'd seen previously because he didn't have that much time, and it was all about just grinding out a result as best we could.
Yeah.
And now that I think he said hopefully the shackles will come off and we can try to finish the season in a positive way, so everyone's full of optimism. So maybe now we've got the international break, but they'll go away and they'll try and work on a couple of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think those are the main points. Was there
Yeah. I
anything that
think
you picked out from there?
6 players are going away on international duty. Is what I
Mm.
gathered from the post match interview. And so a large body of the squad. I mean, 6 players is about half the squad at Watford, but most of the players will still be at the London Colney, and so Tom Cleverley has a great opportunity to work on some new things, potentially tweaking
Mm.
any changes from the system that is already in place. Yeah, like he mentioned in his interview, there's more time for him to get to know the players better, and obviously, yeah, he was very proud of the team as we were. Naturally, working hard for him, literally after a week, and that's such a blessing for Watford to have a coach who was club captain last season
Yeah,
and has been at the club for like 7 or 8 years, including all the loan spells and whatnot. And yeah, so the players definitely seem more on side. But yeah, they showed that they were fighters yesterday, and that's all he could ask for. He said he was surprised to hear his name being sung on the terraces that early into his
I'm not,
tenure. I'm not. Regardless of the
especially after a
result, I
win.
felt I felt that they'd be singing his name, and rightly so. But yeah, I'm pleased for him, and I'm pleased
Yeah,
that
definitely.
the first result has gone in favour of him. Just on that theme, James, of his knowledge
Yeah,
of the squad, he's come from the under-18s at Watford,
yeah,
and I don't think it was a surprise to see someone in that squad featuring on the bench for the first team for the first time. Albert Eames came in onto the bench. Obviously, didn't come off the bench, but all for the experience, which is great to see. A right back in that position coming through, which is yeah. I think it's brilliant. We spoke last season about how there should be more of that happening when we were desperate for players, given the
yeah,
injury situation. Andrews has obviously come in this season, and a manager with that knowledge of the youth setup, Cleverley will know what players are firing on all cylinders in that 18s and that 21s team. So that really opens the door for more opportunities next season and come the end of this season, because that they're not costing nearly as much as a pro that you'd pick up potentially as a free agent. And
no,
it's great experience to them, and he knows it. And I think that's it's just really nice to see somebody coming through. But yeah, ultimately, I'm not too surprised that we've seen that quite so early.
no, and it's all about the pathway, isn't it? You
Yeah.
you want to have an academy with which there's a genuine chance that you could go on to play first team football.
Hmm.
And I know obviously Albert Eames was probably brought in for one, Cleverley's knowledge, and two, availability. But you know, the more that happens, the better the standard of player that you will get in the academy, because people stick around. You won't have a Harry Amass situation necessarily
Hmm.
where you just end up losing somebody because there's no real chance of going to play professional football for that side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, mate, it was great, and it's all about Clevs and how he knows the side, and it was, we spoke about how it was the youngest side since 2011, and I think it's almost like full circle in a way when you think about how many players. I think it was 6 academy players were involved yesterday in the matchday squad, and
Yeah. I
and
think
I
so. Yeah.
sus- I suspect that, I mean, the 2011 game, there would have been a few more academy players involved in that matchday squad. But it's nice. I think it gives us something as a fan base to, I don't know, a, attach ourselves to, or get behind, if
Yeah.
we are going to start giving
Yeah.
youngsters a go. And I think that's, if that's the future of Watford for the next 5 years,
Mm.
then I think a lot of people would kind of get on board with that,
Yeah.
and get behind that. So yeah, mate, it was nice to see, and I hope that those guys do come the end of the season get a chance to get on and play a few minutes.
Yeah. Particularly if we're safe by the
Yeah,
end of that point, it would be great to see a few players coming through, just
yeah,
for a few like 10-minute cameos or whatever. But that's what we saw Ryan Andrews come in to do at the end of last season, and look at how his first year in the championship's going for him. So I think
yeah,
that pathway is definitely on the rise, and that's exactly what you need in a football club at this level. Like you
yeah,
said, it builds so much more of an interest for fans
mm,
in the youth setup. That people are going to want to monitor who's playing well at youth level, who could potentially come through. We've seen it a lot recently. Toby
yeah,
Adeyemo,
yeah,
Jack Greaves. obviously Albert Eames now, Shaq Ford. Everyone's taking an interest in these young players, particularly when
Yeah,
they go out on loan.
yeah,
And that's the pathway that Watford should want to have, because we did, in a decade or 2 decades ago, we were relying on these youth players,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a shame that since the Pozzos have come in, that's sort of faded away. But hopefully now, with the right head coach in charge, even though it's interim, we can see more of that. So that's a real
Yeah,
positive, as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as a lot of Watford fans are concerned.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right then, James. Any last little topics to pick up on, or are we good to go?
I don't think there's too much. It's just nice to be able to sign off as we head into the international break.
Yeah.
Ooh. Um, but sign off on a win, and I hope there's a little bit of optimism now at
mm,
the football club, even if Tom is only in for a short period of time,
yeah.
to the end of the season. But it's nice to kind of have a connection back, and and a sense that we may be able to go and sneak a few more points between now and the end of the season.
Yeah. You've really hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, looking forward to Leeds on Good Friday. That's going to be a tough fixture, but I hope a couple weeks preparation will put us in good stead for that game. But yeah, I think we'll be back before that game. Possibly a little international roundup and just a couple other bits from the Watford sphere if anything
Absolutely.
crops up. But hopefully we'll be back for another podcast next weekend. Um, but yeah, we'll see you again very soon, guys. Thank you very much for listening. The support recently has been immense from you all.
Oh yeah.
We really appreciate it, and we just launched our Instagram account, and we've received so many messages. People loving the pod, so it's all you guys that are pushing us to continue this podcast because we've really loved every second of it, even the season review
Mm.
from last year, which was a dark time for Watford. But yeah, we've really enjoyed it, and your support means we can continue. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you again very soon. Take care, guys.
See you later.